guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma and it is time for my August wrap-up plus wrap-up bingo here on my channel. If you are new to my channel, I play wrap-up bingo as like a wrap-up game. It is very much inspired by all of the TBR games. I myself play a TBR game, but I wanted to add something to the wrap-up. I really thought in January it would keep me motivated to make wrap-ups, but it didn't. But I'm still playing it. I don't really care. But yeah. And it is officially fall here on my video set, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, we are going to be playing wrap-up bingo as well as going over the books that I read this month. If you watched my August TBR, you probably already know, or you might remember that I said I haven't been reading as much in the last few months. So the fact that I read 3 books this month feels pretty impressive to me. But before we start the wrap-up or wrap-up bingo, I do want to go over my stats for the month of August. My stats will be on my phone as per usual. So if you see me looking down while I'm doing the stats, that's why. But I will also try to put the little picture up here of stats, and you'll also see how these stats compare to the other 7 months. In the month of August, I read 0 hours of audiobooks. Technically, we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Read 1,098 pages, and that spanned across 3 books. For genres read, I read 1 contemporary, 1 mystery, and 1 romance. All 3 of the books that I read in August were physical books. The intended audience, I read 1 book that was intended for adults and 2 YA books. I read 1 book by an author who uses he, him pronouns, and 2 by an author that used she, her pronouns. From what I can find on the internet. If I'm wrong, if you know something about these 3 authors that I don't, please let me know in the comments down below. I read 3 new to me authors, as well as I gave 1 4-star and 2 3-stars. So I just wanted to go over where we left the bingo board in July. I'm going to pop a picture up here, but I also have a copy on my mom's iPad. I used Procreate to make my board. Don't come at me, it's not the cutest thing on the world, but the next board will be cuter. But we're not doing too hot. Most places that if we were gonna win, we would need 3 books to hit them. But yeah, this is where we left the board in July. And let's get started with the books that I read in August. Before I go through the books I actually read though, I do want to talk about a book that I technically soft DNFed. I did start the book Night Circus. I can't even remember who it's by at this point. My brain has not been in a place to listen to anything. I am slowly trying to make it through my audio pick for September. I mean, it is only the 5th, but I've listened to it maybe 2 days so far, and it has taken everything in me to focus. So I don't really know anything about this book. I think I listened to about 2 hours of the audiobook, and I genuinely don't know anything about it. So I am technically soft DNFing it, but this is like the definition of a soft DNF because I don't even feel like I gave it a chance. So I probably will eventually go back to it. It was supposed to be my Buzzwordathon book for the month of August. I cannot remember the months this year. It was with my Buzzwordathon book for the month of August, but obviously I did not hit the challenge this month because I did not read this book. And yeah. Also, the other audiobook from my actual TBR was Emma. If you watched my September TBR, you do know that I accidentally downloaded Emma in Italian. I do not speak Italian, and I don't think Emma would be the book to learn how to speak Italian in. So that's why I don't have any audiobooks this month and why it's only physical. But let's get started. The first book that I read in the month of August was Love, Rosie by Cecilia Ahern. If you watched my first round of 5-star predictions, you know that this is the final book that I had to read for my 5-star predictions. Spoiler alert, there is a 5-star prediction wrap-up for round 1 actually coming up in the next few weeks. I didn't think I was gonna make one, but I decided to, so keep your eyes out. Can you tell I work with kids? Pointing to my eyes. But yeah, before I really get into my thoughts in the summary, I do want to just give the trigger warnings. Like with my stats, my notes are on my phone, so if you see me looking down, that's why. But as always, I want to start with the trigger warnings for this book. So for me, the 2 big trigger warnings in this book is that there's a slight mention of alcohol use and alcohol poisoning, as well as the loss of a parent. Those were 2 big triggers that I noticed / I found online when I did my post-read research. If you have read this book and you know other triggers that you think are important for people to know, leave them in the comments down below and I will pin them. You can do that for any of these books, and if I get a lot, I will just pin my own comment with all the triggers that I know. But yeah, I think I just changed the angle on you guys, but it just didn't look right. Love, Rosie is about a girl named Rosie who has been best friends with this boy Alex for pretty much her whole entire life. When Alex is like 17, like right before his senior year or his 12th grade year, his parents decide to move to the United States, and him and Rosie continue their relationship across the ocean. She's in Dublin, he is in Boston, and they continue their relationship. And this book is told completely in emails, letters, IMs, notes, text messages, all that kind of stuff. Like literally, it is all told that way. And it's not just between Rosie and Alex, it's between Rosie and people in her life and Alex and people in his life. Primarily Alex's brother. You don't hear a lot about Alex texting other people. Even though you know that there are other people in his life, you don't hear about them. And it spans, I want to say, across like 4 or 5 decades. Like it starts when they're very, very little and it goes until they are older. Like Rosie's daughter is now like old enough to get married. Like that's how long it spans. So I want to talk about the things that I found nice about this book, that I enjoyed about this book. The pros of the book, you might say. I loved the concept of it. I loved the concept of learning about them through letters and emails and IMs. I will say that there were things that I felt like I was missing because I didn't get to see them actually interact. It was a lot of emails and text messages, so you could see the banter in them, but you couldn't see like those little subtle moments that happen in romance that really help to sell the story. You don't see the like nervous body language or anything like that when it's written in IMs and emails. There were times that like Rosie would be IMing her friend and she might mention it, but like it was just missing that moment that you almost miss out on whether these characters have chemistry or not. I did enjoy the character of Alex in this book. I actually, if you guys don't know, Love, Rosie is one of my all-time favorite movies, like ever, like top 5. It's the reason this book was on my 5-star prediction list, was because of how much I love this movie. So I liked Alex in the book, actually I think more than I actually liked him in the movie, which was kind of surprising to me. I liked Alex. I thought he was an interesting character. There were times I got frustrated with him, but I think because of how the story is written and the timeline of the story, you need to get frustrated with both of them. But I did like Alex. He was a good love interest. Now to move on to the negative feelings I have towards this book. There's a few more negatives than there are positives. There's just too many characters. You had Rosie, you had Alex, you had Alex's significant others, you had Rosie's significant others, you had Rosie's daughters, Rosie's parents, Rosie's sister, Rosie's brother, Alex's brother, Rosie's daughter's best friend. Like, you're starting to see correspondence that are not just between Rosie and Alex, or even between Rosie or Alex with any other character. Like, there are times that like you're seeing emails from Rosie's mother to Rosie's sister, and like, yes, it's about Rosie, but I was like, there's just too much going on. In the movie, which like I said is one of my favorite movies, they cut out some of the romantic storylines that Rosie and Alex had to kind of compact the story a little bit, and I think I was expecting that in the book, but it didn't happen, where they had a lot more love interests, and I was like, this is just too much. Like, I'm waiting too long to know if they're gonna get together or not. Also in the movie, Rosie only had a best friend. She didn't have an older sister, so like the best friend and the older sister were one character in the movie. And there were times where I was like, I don't feel like I need her to have a sister and a best friend. Like, if you can really develop one character, I'd rather have one fully developed character as the side character than 2 characters that I don't really care about, which is kind of what happened there. I didn't really care about the sister or the best friend because there was too many of them. As well as the best friend had a whole life too, so she was super well developed. Every side character was well developed. They all had a life outside of Rosie and Alex, which was great, but because there were so many of them, there was just too much detail about all of them. Does that make sense? Like, I just feel like I was overwhelmed by the detail. I also will say that it got boring and it got repetitive. I felt like the same conflict was happening time and time and time again, and it's not like Rosie or Alex were learning from the conflict that they had. It's not like they woke up and they were like, all right, we got to get our together. Like, they just repeated it over and over and over again, and I wasn't a big fan of that. Like, I wasn't a fan of the fact that I'm like sitting here and I'm listening to the same conflict and the same thing happening between the two of them, and they're getting the same advice from the same people in their lives. Like, it just got really repetitive, and I will be completely honest with you when I say that I skimmed through the last 20-ish pages. Like, I did not find it worth my time to read more of it because I was bored. Overall, I ended up giving this book a 3 out of 5. I think that it was higher rated because my favorite movie is based on the book, so I do have like a sentimental value towards it, but it was not good. I think if there wasn't a movie, it would have a lower rating. And I want to start adding in like recommendations, like if you like this, you might like this. So if you liked the book one day or the movie one day, I think you would also like Love, Rosie. To me, they feel very similar. So that would be my if you like this, you'll like that recommendation for Love, Rosie. Let's bring up the bingo board. And guys, the square, like I already looked at this, I know what square I'm planning to have it cover. And for a 5-star prediction, it's kind of surprising. But I did ultimately decide to cover the square and Almost DNF, which is in the top corner, as you can kind of tell, because I almost DNF'd this book. Like, I really was not feeling this book when it came down to it. I will not read this book again, and there's actually a good chance that I will unhaul it because I don't think I would ever recommend it to a friend. I think it might not be the right style for where I am in life, but I have not found myself wanting to recommend it to people. So the second book I finished in the month of August was definitely my favorite book that I read this month, and it was All We Can Do Is Wait by Richard Lawson. This book does feature trigger warnings for drinking, smoking, loss, like loss of family, friends, domestic violence, depression, and parental loss. This book is about 5 teenagers, and the one thing that all 5 of them have in common is that someone that they love was in a huge bridge accident in Boston where basically the bridge collapsed and no one knows if anyone is going to be okay or survive. And they all meet at the hospital. With the exception of 2 of them, there is a set of siblings. And they basically decide to be each other's support systems until each of them find out what happened to their family members. And it also does feature flashbacks, so you get to learn the story behind each character and behind the relationship they have with the people who are in the accident, which I thought was really interesting, and I really enjoyed how it happened. For my positives about this book, I felt that it was very well paced. It's very short. I think it's like 295-ish pages. Let's see. Not even, it's 275 pages. This book is 275 pages. And there was never a point where I was like, oh my god, what? Stay. There was never a point where I was like, come on, give me the answer, like I need to know. There were times that I was like, oh my god, I want to know. I want to know what happened to this character or how this happened. But there was never a point that I was like waiting for the answer. And like, it was too drawn out. It was just well paced. It was well paced. I don't know why I'm feeling the need to over-explain what it means for a book to be well paced, but I felt that this book was done really well with the pacing. I do know that that's kind of an unpopular opinion from what I've seen on Goodreads reviews, but in my personal opinion, it was well paced. I enjoyed all 4 characters in this book. I thought they were really well developed and they were interesting. They weren't characters that I felt like were super easy to get confused or mixed up. Even though I'm talking about the positives, I will talk about one negative that I felt for this book because it does have to do with the characters. But I do feel like there were 2 characters whose parental stories, like why their parents were the way they were, like the relationship they had with the parents, felt like they overlapped too much that I sometimes had to use the context clues around to remember who I was reading about, but it was a very rare occurrence. But I just wish that the mom storylines weren't so close. Even if it had been like one character's mom was this way and one character's dad was this way, I think I would have enjoyed it a little bit more. I just didn't like that there were 2 moms that were so close. I also really enjoyed this non-linear storyline telling. It reminds me a little bit of like what a Jodi Picoult book might do, where like you're reading about in the hospital and then all of a sudden you're transported 2 years later or 2 years earlier to Cape Cod, and then you come back to the hospital and then you're transported to the south side of Boston, and then you're back in the hospital, and then you're all over the place. I enjoyed that aspect of it, and I think that that really helped keep the pacing of the book done well. And it also, they all had a storyline that were flashbacks that were outside of the hospital that really helped to develop their characters, I feel like, and develop why they are the way that they are. And then the one negative that I haven't already discussed was that I felt that it was slightly predictable. Not in the way that I'm like, oh my god, I know exactly who's gonna die, but at the same time, like, oh my god, I know exactly who's gonna die. I actually only got one person's outcome wrong out of the I think there's five high schoolers that were there. I only got one wrong, which in my mind is actually kind of impressive. But it also was just, it was a little unpredictable, but I'm also gonna chop that up to the fact that this is a young adult novel, and it's not like people with English lit degrees are reading it. So my camera card is flashing that it's almost out, so I'm just gonna change it real quick. All right, and let's bring back up the bingo board. And I actually am gonna cover another one of these. Yep, I'm gonna cover another one, and I am gonna cover the fact that it made me cry, because this book surprisingly made me cry. I am not a big crier, but there was a scene that it made me cry. I got a little teary, they came out. I wasn't bawling, but I was definitely crying. And oh yeah, I got distracted and didn't do part of this, but I did give this book a 4 out of 5 stars. And as for recommendations, I would recommend this book to people who enjoyed the book 5 Feet Apart or the movie 5 Feet Apart with Cole Sprouse. I think that if you enjoyed those books, you will enjoy this one. The part that I cried at reminded me a little bit of the part that I cried at with 5 Feet Apart. So 4 out of 5. All right. And the final book that I finished in the month of August was Amy Chelsea Stacie Dee by Mary G. Thompson. So this book does feature trigger warnings for kidnapping, sexual assault, depression, PTSD, blackouts, and death. So this book is about a girl named Amy who, when she is like 10, I think, gets kidnapped, and then 6 years later she returns home. But when she returns home, she does not return home with the cousin that she was kidnapped with. So both girls were kidnapped, but only one of them returns home. And when Amy returns home, she refuses to talk about anything that happened while she was kidnapped, including what happened to her cousin, which causes a lot of family drama. Pros for this book, I really enjoyed the plot. I thought it was interesting. For a YA thriller, I felt like it was really thrilling. Like, there were times like when I was reading like the climax that I actually had to like close the book and like and get myself like back to remembering that this is a book and it's not real life. This isn't actually happening to me. So I did enjoy that aspect of it. And like I was saying, the exciting part was just like really, really exciting. Like, I've read thrillers where it's not as exciting, but like my heart was pounding and I was like I wanted to stop reading because I was kind of freaking myself out, but at the same time I didn't want to stop. I had to know what happened. Like, I read probably the last like 100 pages in a sitting. I also felt like the voice of the character was really well done. There were times that I was kind of getting frustrated with the character, and then I remembered that she's 16 years old, but she was kidnapped and taken away from society and reality. Not reality, but like our reality. Her reality was very different than ours for 6 years of her life. So of course she's gonna be like slightly more mature, but at the same time she's still gonna have that voice of a 10-year-old. And I feel like Mary G. Thompson did that really, really well, because I was very I was frustrated, but I was intrigued. It's hard to explain. Like, I just feel like it was done really well. And then my other positive like pro for this, and I don't know how to say it the right way, but I think that the kidnapper's psyche and the way that it was explained was really interesting. It wasn't just like I liked it the way that you like to understand the brain of an unsub in Criminal Minds. Like, you're like you big eyes, shocked, that kind of thing. That's very similar to how I felt about the kidnapper in this book. Like, I didn't like him, didn't really want to know more about him, but at the same time, the stuff I did know had me like, if that makes sense. The cons of this book, there were times that it got repetitive, and like there were times that it was supposed to be repetitive. Like, she was having like flashbacks and it was like the PTSD memories. That part didn't bother me, but it was like the family drama and the fight and the way her brother felt about when she came back, and like the bumping of heads, that I was just kind of like, all right, let's move on. Let's do this. Let's get somewhere else, because until the exciting part, it was kind of slow, and that's where it was repetitive, if that makes sense. Like, the mental health PTSD repetitiveness is not at all what I'm talking about. I am, however, talking about the way that like some of the other parts that I was just kind of like, all right, I'm bored. Like, let's keep going, let's keep going, let's keep going. Which kind of goes hand in hand with my next thing, which is that the side characters were kind of annoying. So the cousin that got kidnapped had a younger sister, and the younger sister I found annoying a lot. So the cousin of the girl who came back, I found annoying. She was probably realistic in the way that she was like riding the fence, where she wanted the relationship back with her cousin, but at the same time she wanted to help her mom grieve. So like that I get, but like she just, I don't know, every time she came on I was just like, do I really need to read this? And like the cousin who got kidnapped, her name was Dee and her sister's name was Lee, which got me so confused. And then there was a brother, and like every time I read Lee I was thinking that it was the brother, because typically when I meet people whose names are spelled L-E-E, they are male, and I don't know, it just confused me. And like, I know that's me, that's something that I need to get used to, because like there's nothing that says that L-E-E is not a feminine name, but like in my life experience that's what I would see it as. But like the brother was kind of annoying too. Like, I get that he had his life and it was upturned when his sister was kidnapped, and then she comes back 6 years later and it's turned upside down again, but like he was annoying, the mom was annoying. Like, I don't know, I just found everyone annoying. And like maybe it's because they were like walking on eggshells around her and she found that annoying, and she's the one telling the story, so you're a little more annoyed. But I just found them so irritating. Like, I did not want her to be around anyone but the boy who was like supposed to somewhat be a love interest but not be a love interest. And there was bi rep, because he was a bi boy, which you rarely see in media, so that was really cool. But I just found the side characters really, really annoying. And the one other thing that I wanted was, I wanted one final twist. I feel like the good big plot twist was earlier in the book, and I wanted one final twist. I wanted like the murderer to jump back up with a knife kind of moment that you see in like horror movies. I wanted that one more twist. Like, I don't know, like I have a good example, but I don't want to give a spoiler. Like, maybe I'll just put spoiler right here and I'll tell you what I wanted. And if you read the book, you can tell me if you agree. And if you're not going to read it, you can see it. But if you do think you're going to read it, you can skip over it. And I'll actually put a timestamp right here too. And timestamp, spoiler. Okay, so I wish that there was like a twist that if you know that like Amy accidentally killed Dee while they were there in like self-defense. I really wanted there to be like a plot twist, like when she got to the cabin, that Dee wasn't actually dead. Like, that's what I wanted so badly, but obviously it didn't happen. All right, spoiler over. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the skipping through. I don't know. Overall, I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I don't think that YA thrillers at this point are ever going to get above a 3-star for me. Like, they're going to need to be immaculate and perfect for me to give them higher than a 3. It's not going to stop me from reading them, but they do need to just be like a little bit better. My final thoughts was that I definitely had hyped this book up more in my head. I saw this book on a shelf when it came out in 2016. That's the other thing. I definitely thought this book came out earlier than it did, but it came out in 2016. This feels like a 2012 read to me though. So it came out in like 2016. So I probably put it on my TBR back in like 2016. And I definitely think I hyped it up more in my head, so that's definitely my fault that it didn't live up to the hype. But overall, I enjoyed it. I might recommend it to some friends who are into that. If you like YA books and you like Criminal Minds, I would recommend this, because it definitely has, to me, a Criminal Minds vibe to it. Alright, let's bring back up the bingo board for one final moment. So I'm actually going to go over it with you guys, because I didn't look yet for this book. But it was not a memoir, it was not a 5-star sci-fi, it was not out of my comfort zone, I did not fall for one of the love interests, no friends to lovers, I read it in more than 72 hours, there was no couple to ship, it wasn't, it was kind of scary, but it wasn't scary. No enemies to lovers, doesn't have an adaptation, never DNF'd it, no fake dating, no trope that I hate, wasn't a reread, there wasn't a relatable character, there was not a favorite trope, I don't want a movie, and it's not a new all-time favorite. So this is actually where we are going to leave the bingo board for the month of August. But we did add some places that are going to be easier to win. Diagonally going from the left corner to the bottom right corner, and we now only need 2 squares, a scary book and an almost DNF, or a second chance DNF, sorry. On the top row, We have 4 squares that we need to hit. Going down vertically from the first column, we need 3 books to win there. And then also going across the middle row, we just need 2 books, a same month adaptation and a second chance DNF. So it's feeling more and more like there's a chance that we could win. If you are new, I will redo the board for my January 2022 update if I do not win between now and January 22 wrap up. So these are the 3 books that I read in the month of August, from favorite to least favorite, with All You Can Do Is Wait, Amy, Chelsea Stacie Dee, and Love, Rosie. Have you read any of these books before? What did you think? Are any of these books on your TBR? Anything you would like to tell me about these 3 books, I would love to hear. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, Worlders! Hey Worlders, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emma, and I just realized I forgot something. I just have to run around my house a little bit. I need a drink, hold on. And that was spanning across 3 books. I read, can I talk today? Apparently not. It's gonna have to block my pumpkin a little bit.